6 mind-blowing motorsport comebacks. Everyone loves a good comeback story, and thanks to the incredible work on safety in our sport over the past few decades, drivers are now able to return to racing from potentially fatal accidents. With Romain Grosjean and Juan Manuel Correa recently announcing their comeback to racing after their respective crashes, we decided to take a look at 6 other remarkable recoveries. Niki Lauda. During the 1976 German Grand Prix, an event Lauda had already tried to boycott over safety fears, he crashed his Ferrari into a barrier. The car burst into flames with Lauda trapped in the burning wreckage. Other drivers arrived at the scene to help pull him out of the fire, but Lauda had already suffered severe burns to his head and inhaled toxic gases that significantly damaged his blood and lungs. Although conscious during the accident, he later fell into a coma. His injuries were so serious, Lauda was even given the last rites in hospital. Everybody assumed the worst, but he pulled through, making an incredible recovery. Not only did he make that recovery, he also came back to Formula 1, missing 2, yes just 2 races, and he was back for the Italian Grand Prix only 6 weeks later. Although petrified, to use his own words, he finished the race in 4th and fought through the pain and discomfort to return to the sport he loved. Inspirational doesn't even come close to describing Lauda's return to racing, one of the all-time greats who would then go on to win another 2 world titles in 1977 and 1984. If you haven't seen the film Rush, I'd urge you to go and see it. Felipe Massa. During the 2009 Hungarian Grand Prix weekend, Ferrari driver Felipe Massa was struck by a suspension spring that had come loose from Rubens Barrichello's brawn. The impact, which happened at one of the high-speed parts of the circuit, just before turn 4 to be exact, knocked Massa instantly unconscious behind the wheel and saw him plough into a nearby tyre barrier after being unable to stop. Massa was airlifted to a hospital where he was diagnosed with a skull fracture and needed immediate surgery above his left eye. Although his condition was first described as life-threatening but stable, he quickly improved and was released from the Budapest hospital a week later. Whilst recovering from the accident, it was decided that Massa required a metal plate in his skull. He missed the remainder of the season, with Ferrari finding several replacements over the year. He came back to racing for the first race of 2010, managing to finish in 2nd place in his very first race back after his accident. Robert Kubica. Robert Kubica should probably be on this list twice. He suffered 2 almighty crashes during his racing career, but still managed to find a way back and continue with his passion both times. The first of the 2 was during the 2007 Canadian Grand Prix, when Kubica was the victim of a massive 75G crash. His car caught the Toyota of Jarno Trulli, hit a lump of grass and then ploughed into the concrete retaining wall at around 300 km an hour. His car bounced off the wall, barrel rolled across the circuit and into a heap outside the nearby hairpin. Kubica's feet were visible at the bottom of his BMW Sauber, and many feared the worst. However, it was confirmed that Kubica had only sprained his ankle and had slight concussion, which quite frankly was a miracle considering the impact, and missed the 2007 United States Grand Prix as a precaution, giving Sebastian Vettel his F1 debut. Kubica returned for the French Grand Prix a race later and finished 4th. By 2011, Kubica was one of F1's top talents, but during the winter break, Kubica was almost killed in a crash whilst rallying. He was trapped in his car for more than an hour after a crash barrier had pierced through it. As a result of the crash, Kubica had to have a partial amputation to his forearm, plus suffering fractures across his body and losing a large amount of blood. After countless surgeries, he was released from the hospital to start the rehabilitation process. Renault had already found a replacement for Kubica, and it seemed the F1 dream was over when he announced he wasn't fit enough to compete in 2012. Kubica even told the media years later he was scheduled to race with Ferrari for the 2012 season. Heartbreaking. Kubica did return to Formula 1 though in 2019 with Williams Racing. He finished the German Grand Prix in 10th, making him the last driver to score a championship point for the Williams team. Mika Häkkinen. Back in 1995 during the season finale weekend, Mika Häkkinen experienced a tyre failure during qualifying. Häkkinen suffered a skull fracture, a blockage of his airways and significant internal bleeding. Fortunately, the trackside team responded quickly and undoubtedly saved his life. He was transported to a close hospital where he remained in critical condition. He was at the hospital for 2 months and then made incredible progress during his recovery. Being at the end of the season, the injury didn't result in Häkkinen missing any races, and he was able to race again when the season started in Australia for the 1996 season. He would then go on to win the driver's title in 98 and 99. Alex Zanardi. After Alex Zanardi's F1 career in the 1990s that saw him start 41 Grand Prix, he headed to the Kart Championship Series. In 2001, during a race at the Eurospeedway Lausitz, Zanardi suffered a crash whilst leading in the final few laps. As a result of a late pit stop and being on cold tyres, Zanardi lost control of his car and hit another driver. The accident had cut the front of Zanardi's car off. Immediate medical assistance helped save his life, but Zanardi had lost 75% of his blood volume and both his legs, one at the knee and the other at his thigh. Determined to race again though, Zanardi designed and built his custom prosthetics and by 2003 was allowed to race again with the help of hand-operated accelerator and brake controls. He went back to the racetrack where he lost his legs and completed the 13 laps he never finished. Zanardi returned to racing in the 2003 European Touring Car Championship at Monza, where he finished 7th. During his time in the World Touring Car Championship, he won several races and was also allowed to drive a Formula 1 car again in 2006 testing for BMW Sauber. Zanardi is also a highly successful paracyclist and has won numerous Olympic gold medals and world championships, a true legend and hero to many. However, he was involved in a serious hand cycling crash in the summer of 2020 and is on another road to recovery. We wish him all the best. Billy Munger. At just 17 years old, Billy Munger suffered a huge crash in British F4. As a result of this, both Billy's legs had to be amputated below the knee. His story was shared worldwide, with many drivers showing their support to the young and promising talent that looked to have his career cut short. However, Munger was determined to get back racing and made his return to the racetrack when he tested an adapted Fun Cup race car by disabled motorsport specialists Team Brit. This special event happened at Brands Hatch, where Munger would regain his race licence. Since his crash, Munger has driven in the BRDC British Formula 3 Championship and Euro Formula Open Championship. His incredible story was captured in the moving BBC documentary Driven, the Billy Munger story. I think it's safe to say all of the drivers mentioned in this video and others that have suffered similar are true motorsport icons for their tremendous bravery and heart shown at the peak of adversity. What would you like to see next on the WTF1 YouTube channel? Let us know in the comment section below.